right? Okay. This is the first of a series, I hope, of the young talking to the not so young.
I'm not so young. Yes.
That's right. So am I. I'm not so young either.
We are the only ones here. There's a twist.
So we are lucky to have from here a young man who's an entrepreneur, a lot of experience in the region, right? Also ex-scout.
Right.
Okay.
Be prepared.
And that's Breamar. She's a social activist and a journalist. Very unusual, you know. Right? Most journalists cannot or dare not be social activists. Right? That's Kumar, young man, social activist too. Welcome. Thank you. And that's Feroz, who is an academic, and I believe you have been, you study, your interest is in climate change.
Yes.
And I support this relationship to imperialism.
Yes.
That's exactly the issue. There's Tan Tee Seng, not so young, social activist, student organizer, went to jail. And that's Ang Yong Guan, our resident shrink. Okay. So I'm very glad that, but unfortunately we have one guy who was missing. Right? He's PhD from Cambridge, Masters from Cambridge, history guy. Unfortunately, he could not come because he's not well. Everybody is getting called very cold these days. Okay, so before we proceed with the discussion, I want to kind of frame the context. Of course, what we want to discuss is the future of Singapore. How do we survive in the conflicted world we are in? Right? I describe the situation in the world today as a slow motion crisis. Okay? And this slow motion crisis has got multiple dimensions which have its roots right in the past. Okay? And I want to just very quickly outline the timeline so that it will form a basis for them to interact. Right? Okay, the first is that human nature is still with us. There are two aspects of human nature which is very interesting. Right from the prehistory days, when human societies were hunting and gathering, right? They were living on a subsistence basis now. And therefore they could cooperate because nobody was rich and nobody was poor. Everybody was poor. And then when they started farming, right, that's when they begin to have a surplus. And then you need to protect the surplus, right, from different tribes and groups, as well as from predators that come from the outside. And that led to having wars and so on and so forth, and defenses and armies and hierarchies and kings and generals and a whole lot, right, which we have till today. Okay, and that's why Singapore has the biggest foreign exchange savings per capita in the world, and that's why we have the biggest armed forces per capita in the world, and so we have to protect. Okay, so we've gone through its whole history, right? First World War, Second World War. First crisis in Singapore was the crisis of being decolonized by the British, right? And that was the time of the communist revolution in Malaya, right? And then the second crisis was when we got kicked out of Malaysia, Then we have no hinterland. So Lee Kuan Yew spent 1 month hiding in the chalet in Changi Point, crying all about. This was told to me by Jonathan Stewart, who was a friend of the family, right? So he really told me that the guy was crying. So when we saw on the TV that he was crying when he announced the separation, and people say, crocodile tears. It's not crocodile tears. It's real tears. Because his vision of Malaysia, in which he has a very important role, was smashed. Okay. So that then led to the globalization of Singapore. And Rajaratnam made it sound very nice. Because we became not just a servant of the imperialism, we became a tool of the imperialism. Okay? And of course we call it, we are entering the global city phase, what sounded then good. Okay? And so we succeeded and we made money and so on and so forth until now suddenly China came out, right? The Americans got worried, now there's some threatening of each other and so on and so forth. So that's where we are now. Okay. So I want to invite each of you, one at a time, to say, then what are we going to do? What should we do now? Let's start with the young guys. What should we do now? How are we going to handle this new emerging crisis? How are we going to survive? Okay. Student of imperialism.
Hello. Hi everybody, it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much, Prof Tay, for that beautiful introduction. My name is Feroz. It's my first time meeting many of you. I've just come back to Singapore. I just got back from a stint in the US where I was studying typhoons and hurricanes and things like that. I would say
you were in Florida, right?
I was in New Orleans in Louisiana, which is where Hurricane Katrina hit. Fun fact about Hurricane Katrina, RSAF Chinook was actually one of the first vessels to respond. A Singapore helicopter was one of the first vessels to respond. It was at this time, and I think it's a useful time. It helps me frame a lot of things now, where George Bush was in power. There was a war in Iraq brewing, and a massive hurricane had just touched down in the US. And there's a Singaporean helicopter coming down in New Orleans, offering assistance and aid to people in New Orleans that needed to be evacuated. I think it speaks a lot to the fact I did NS in Singapore in the police. We have a military base, a US military base in Singapore. I don't know how many people know this or how much it's common.
Do we have a military base in America?
We also do have a base in America, yeah. I mean, not a base, but we have training facilities. You can talk to, there's probably people that you know that are related to you that have trained, during their NS, they went to America to train. And, as much as we have stories about, what US soldiers do when they come to Singapore and they go to Orchard Towers, Americans have similar stories about what Singaporeans do when they go to Kansas and they have a nice time in the clubs and so on. So I want to just raise some of those things to say that this question of like the current crisis or the current conjuncture, I think there's like two main things that I think I'm tracking personally, and I'm very curious what everyone else is tracking. And the first is the fact that now that Joe Biden is in power in the US, I'm sorry, it's very US centric, but unfortunately my primary analysis is that we live under US empire. That's the name of the system. There's multipolarity coming now. We really are in a moment of like the resurgence of many other places, but there is still one apex power. There's only one country with that many aircraft carriers and that much military force that has the power to project its force everywhere around the world. So we just have to accept that it is American empire right now. And the heads of the American empire have decided actually that they're going to lean into this green energy revolution, and they're going to lean into this new form of producing energy, this new kind of industrial project to revitalize the United States, this kind of not necessarily New Deal, but this Bidenomics idea.
Okay, so I think you have set out the background,
yes.
Right? And I think we're going to come back again later on to talk about, and then what?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you. That's good, yes.
Okay.
Thanks Feroz for that. I was also thinking a lot about this American-centric global order that we have, and also this, recovering from cough. Also this sort of transition to multipolarity that seems to be brewing with the formation not really the formation, but the strengthening of BRICS, the BRICS alliance. And there's also, and I guess Singapore's position with all of this is interesting to me, because our biggest trade partner has been the US for a very long time. I think the 2021 stat is that we overall we have more imports from the US. It's about $80.4 billion of imports from the US. Right? It's China is only fourth, right? The fourth largest trade partner. And when I think about this, I think of what Shanmugam and Tharman said recently about comments about US-China relations. Not really US-China, but also in context of Ukraine. Right? Ukraine is a very important flashpoint that's happening right now, and everybody's talking about it. And there's a sort of it's possibly an extension of the new Cold War that we're seeing, right? Where it's US-China or sort of like US-China, Russia, and this BRICS alliance and so on and so forth. And Singapore's position around it has not really been very clear. Singapore voted in favor of the resolution to against the aggression by Russia. Right, this was against a lot of countries that were in the global south. I think 35 countries or so abstained from this. And some analysts said that is there a resurgence of a non-aligned movement that's happening, right? That people don't want to align themselves with neither the US nor any emerging power, global superpower that also has an imperial project in mind, right? Some people are thinking that's China or Russia. Shanmugam went and said some very interesting comments about Ukraine after this whole vote, and he said,
yes, there seemed to be a divergence between Shanmugam and
Vivian.
Vivian.
Yeah, correct. And they may be neighbors, but you know, different policy.
But this may well be, but we will come back to this. This may well be the what they call strategic ambivalence.
Yes.
So this is something, and this is something which Prof Ang Yong Guan may want to comment later on about the psychology underpinning the political culture. Okay, but in the meantime, I want to ask Breamar to reflect on your observations of the Singapore culture as a journalist, former journalist, and also as a social activist. Okay.
Hello everyone, good evening. Thank you for having me here. I think it's a very interesting topic. Just whether we can do it justice in a short time, because there are many tracks on this topic, right?
I'm hoping that we will have more sessions to develop some of the themes that will arise for this discussion today.
I think what is the good thing that has happened, and some of y'all may not quite agree with me. I think in the presidential elections, President-elect Tharman put it right in the center for the Singapore population about geopolitics, which I think is a good wake-up call for everyone who thinks that Singapore can continue like this in the same old manner. Just go and tweak a few things here and there. And I think just to build up from there on what Kumar has said, the regional body ASEAN that began in 1967 is an important component. In the last few days, I know many do not like to read the Straits Times, but I still rely on Straits Times to give me quickly the happenings of what is going on. ASEAN has featured quite a lot in the discussions. Myanmar topic has come up very strongly. Mind you, read the language carefully from Indonesia's side that we need to get tougher. Yet we do know the country that went on its way quietly to meet Aung San Suu Kyi was Thailand. Thailand's foreign minister. Cambodia keeps wooing Myanmar. So we have a problem within our own area of ASEAN in terms of its approach of how to stand up against a country that till today will do air raids and kill its own people. So that's one, an ASEAN mechanism. The other thing that has come up on BRICS, Brazil, India, Russia, China and thank you, South Africa. What is India doing today, which is quite scary? There is some talk, I say it carefully, talk, that India wants to rename itself into Bharat. Now, I looked at the motives, it is scary, because the motives are very strongly embedded in Hindu culture. We know that India is one of the most democratic, open in terms of race, cultures, ethnicities, indigenous communities, and religion. And if you are going to do that, what is going to happen? Impact on BRICS, impact on global situation. Last point that I will make, because I can go on and I know you want to bring in on this discussion, is the discussion of conflicts. I think we have had conflicts, as you put out in your framing. We have had conflicts maybe from the time we were born, whether at an individual level, within the family, within society, and now we are watching more and more conflicts. Here we look at the African continent. Sometimes you really do not know what's the solution there, right? They have democratic processes, they have human rights, they have many kinds of mechanisms, and yet tribal warfare, internal warfare, invasion of one over the border takes place. But look at our area, what is going on with Myanmar, what is going on the border between Thailand and Myanmar, what is going on in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, and now we have Timor-Leste. Is Timor-Leste going to help us in its peace-making structures that we become stronger? I will hold off for the rest.
So again, you have raised some issues which I think our Dr. Khan will be able to help clarify for us. And that is the emergence of not only race, not only class politics, right? Race politics, right? And this is something that is happening a lot in kind of right-wing movements, right? Are we going to see that kind of thing rising in Singapore, right? Or in the region around us? It's quite a concern. So in the meantime, can I ask our ex-scout who has been doing a lot of work in the region, right? Talk about your experience in the region. And what have you found out?
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you, Prof. And thanks for everyone coming out today. I think what's more important is we are sharing the context of where we are from and our lands. It's later on to also to hear from everyone.
No, you. It's okay. We can't hear you.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Okay, I try. All right.
Okay. Aldrin, please take it.
Too much. Okay.
Wait.
Yes. So I'm coming from a slightly different perspective. So for me, I belong to the lived experience group. I believe because I've been traveling quite a lot in the region. Just to give a background of how I grew up in Singapore. I mean, I was the usual student, grew up, studied in all the Singapore schools, and
You were also a teacher, right?
I was a teacher, and as a teacher, it is my job to prepare the youth for the next generation, right, to take on leadership roles, right, to make the right decisions for the rest of the country. And that's the thing. If I've not had a lived experience, if I've not read enough books, if I've not gotten enough engagement in discussions, right, and discourse like this, how am I as a teacher? Am I able to impart the necessary skills and the knowledge to have meaningful time of learning? Right? So one of the first things I did was when I left teaching, I embarked on a trip. So everyone told me Iran was dangerous because if you go there, you get killed. You know, if you break a rule, your head get chopped off or your head get chopped off. I went there, nothing happened. My head is still here. I went to the Holy Temple. I went through the motion. If you are infidel, if you are not a believer, your head gets chopped off. But I was there, and nothing happened to me. Right? I was in Syria. I was in Lebanon. I even went to the Hezbollah stronghold.
Yeah, this is another thing, you know, about the Singapore culture. Fear, you know, right? And we exaggerate problems in other countries. So, right? Like a lot of people dare not even go to JD because you get robbed immediately. Okay? And luckily you don't get cut off your head immediately, but you get robbed.
So I think the idea is we are brought up to think in a certain way. We are brought up right, to see the world in a certain lens. I think it's important for us to re-explore them, re-examine it. I mean, with your own experience, to start questioning certain beliefs, certain ideas. And I think with, again, more dialogue, more conversations, maybe there are certain new perspectives that might make, your worldview, will change your worldview and might change your behaviors rather than the usual campaigns or using money to influence action. Why not having individuals, every individual here, think for yourself and figure out what's the best thing to do. So I think with that in mind, that's why I just want to leave at that. And hopefully later we have a good lively discussion.
Again, another big issue which Professor Ang will talk about, right? That is, how do we learn something? Do we only learn from books, right? How do we learn from life? That is the issue. So now over to you.
Thank you, Prof. I have been thinking about this topic for a while, and what strikes me most is this: we are still have the brain of a hunter-gatherer. Our brain is still the primitive brain. We have Apple version 14 now. The brain is still version 1. That is the first thing. So we are trying to make sense of the world. And the world is so complex. Not only conflicted, but it's complex. Look at scam, look at fake news, look at cyber security, look at misinformation. Tons and tons of problems.
The ISD.
Okay. Okay. So we, on the one hand, the complexity is getting worse. On the other hand, we have a hunter-gatherer brain, and we are trying to make sense of the world. So I totally agree with Alvin that you need the experiential component. And for Singapore to survive in such a conflicted, complex world, we must sayang our citizens first. We must embrace diversity. And I totally agree with you, we must have this dialogue. This kind of dialogue where Singaporeans then think for themselves and then decide for themselves. And in this respect, as a psychiatrist, I'd like to share with you the difference between the left brain and the right brain. There's been a lot of research recently on the difference between the left and the right brain. The left is logical, systematic, linear, black or white, right or wrong, very legalistic. And many of the population in the world is actually living in the left brain world. Singapore is a left brain society. Everything is by rules, laws. You have done wrong, you have to be punished. There is hardly any engagement. But when you involve the right brain is learning and growing. It's about artistic pursuit. It is about music. It is about the broad view of the world. Remember, the left brain controls the right hand. So the right hand is doing. So the left brain is about human doing. You can be confident in singing and dancing, is doing. And it's a lot about confidence. There's this phrase, you fake it until you make it. And this is all the left brain work. Now, the right brain is controlled by the left hand. So the right brain is about learning and growing. The right brain is about opening your mind, accepting different views. And when you open your mind, you can engage people. When your mind is closed, left brain, we are a left brain society, there is no engagement. There's a lot of suing. I take you to court, I sue you. But hey, where is the engagement? Engagement comes from the right brain, where you open your mind. I will give you more example later on, so I'll stop here just to tell you the power of engaging the right brain, which is represented by your left hand. The more your right brain is activated, the more open you are, the more engaging you are, the more happier you are. I stop there.
This is a wonderful segue to our friend here, Tan Tee Seng, who is an activist and who paid the price of it, right, under Operation Spectrum, right, where you wanted to do something, you wanted to express yourself, but the left-brain government clamped down on you, right, and called you a Marxist conspirator, right? So now explain what happened.
Actually, I've been involved in some kind of social activism for the last 40 years, one after another. Right? And then the problem about being an activist, social activist, is that you sometimes develop very micro views of the world because you confront with the issues of the day, or the issue that you are fighting with. So usually I don't develop that kind of macro views of the world. So to me, is more. So this is important. So for me, I was just speaking to him earlier on regarding this question of education, because I want to answer that question that Prof said about challenges and what we should do with challenges and so on. I do not know what to do, but let me explain from my perspective. These challenges are not really. I mean, I'm very confident of the future. I'm not pessimistic about the future, because I come from the society. I mean, most of you around my age will understood this. At a point of time when we were, I went to school in 1965. That was the year that we started this idea of a new nation.
1965, Singapore left Malaysia.
Yeah, so 65. So the first time, and that is also the year that first time I learned English language. Because the society at that point of time doesn't, only the elites talk about English and the rest of us speak like dialect. And nobody.
You were what? Teochew Nam?
Teochew Nam, right? So this is the background. But the elites, the super elites, and those with the means were able to go to England, were able to go to UK to study and come back and manage Singapore. By and large, the reality at that point of time is that 50% in my cohort, 50% did not pass primary school. And a large part, I would say, that is because of the language issue, because basically a liberation of the mind to allow us to fulfill our fullest potential. Right? So given that context itself, we did not do too badly for the last 50 years. Right? And if you now you have to project it in the next 50 years, I think we have young people that are very educated, and therefore I think they have more data, more. I think their capacity will be much better developed than the generation that we were in. So basically, this is my response to Kheng Soon on what is the challenges in India.
Yeah, okay. So now I think we want to invite the audience to ask questions, and then we can develop the responses accordingly. Okay, first question. Okay. Well, that was so big. Oh, he is Mr. Paul. He's an old scout.
I'm more concerned with the Indo-China corridor. They are our neighbors. Can you elaborate more on what do you think is going to happen in Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and how will it affect Singapore, in particular ASEAN as a whole? The way I see it, Indonesia is the main country that is leading ASEAN, and we are a very, very small island state, or whatever you call it. Okay? And how are we going to go from here? I'm more concerned than that, the geopolitical situation.
Anybody?
Yeah, I will not profess that I know all of it, yeah, but I think what you have raised is a serious concern. You know that ASEAN is actually 5+5. There are 5 better countries and 5, some are even lower developing countries. What we have to look at is where is China within ASEAN, where is China in the African continent. I think their tentacles, maybe it's not even tentacles, they are already quite grounded in many of our countries in Southeast Asia. Laos, Myanmar, how is Myanmar surviving so well with China there? Thailand, Vietnam. Vietnam, despite its past history, still has got quite a lot of dealings. And then we have Philippines, but we have problems. The South China Sea, and also within ASEAN, Malaysia, Singapore, Petra Branca has come up again. The islands have come up again between Indonesia and China and Philippines and Vietnam. They are all talking about the same country. So international borders are very strong. Borders are very strongly coming up as conflictual points. But what we have to remember in all of this is the economic side. Supply chain is huge. Shipments are huge. So the international borders are becoming quite an area of intense colonization. I want it's mine. So this will go on. The other part is past histories. Past histories and how were borders drawn up when they all became independent after being colonized. The last part that I would like to say in response to this is, well, Indonesia can be strong. Singapore is still taking on a neutral role of bringing everybody to the table. On Myanmar, we were slow. Now we are trying to do the catch up. Indonesia has pushed it. But then backdoor, Thailand has gone ahead. So what then do you mean by your regional group? If we just want to look at Indo-China, we also got to look at Indo-Pacific. That is also another big area that has emerged. So at the end of the day, just going back to what you have raised, it is US, China politics that are trickling down, and maybe not even trickling. It is putting roots in many countries who have developed some kind of a relationship, some kind of an interdependency, economic interdependency, etc. So how Singapore, last part, how Singapore is going to unpick itself from this one good area it keeps saying and doing can be two different things too, is neutrality. We love everybody. But the China and US may put a lot of pressure. Where's your stance? You have to support us. So how will that come up? Because how we show our positioning will also mean it influences our positioning with a lot of other countries. I think we are in a very tight spot. Actually, that is how I see it.
What developed the discussion on imperialism? Imperialism in relation to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I think the main root of everything that I was trying to say and everything that I'm tracking here is that the country that we live in is an impossible experiment. It doesn't make sense. There are 6 million people on this tiny island. We don't grow any of our own food. We can't take care of ourselves. We can't build our own buildings. We have to import people who look like me to come and build the buildings. We can't take care of our people. We have to import people from Southeast Asia. This whole country is built on a set of impossible contradictions. And the idea, the fundamental logic of sustainability, the idea of can this be sustained for any point in the future is, how do you resolve these contradictions? What's the plan when the sea levels rise, or when these contradictions become more intense? This society is just going to give up having underpaid, overexploited underclass of carers, really? And so I think the main reason I want to track these geopolitical questions is that like it's not accidental that people in the Philippines are so devastated in the local job markets that they have to migrate here. Like it's not an accident. There's a very specific history behind why the Philippines send so many people to Singapore. It's not an accident that like there's no Pakistani migrant workers, but there are Bangladeshi migrant workers. Like there's like specific histories behind all of this. And imperialism is the original sin that explains so much of why does Tanjong Pagar exist? Why do we have these massive skyscrapers? Can you grow skyscrapers in Singapore? Does the raw material come from this country? Where do we get the sand? Where do we get all these materials? Like the reason I study what I do is I want to understand what is the material footprint of how everything got here and what kind of social relationships are required to sustain this kind of impossibility. And so to me, the question of like how Singapore is going to meet these challenges in the future until we start, reorganizing some elements of our society to be like, maybe we can be slightly adjusting these concepts of what a good life means, or who does care, or who takes care of people, or who builds, why we need more buildings, why we need more shopping malls that look exactly the same and have a Uniqlo and so on. Like I think some of these questions are questions that go back to what is the foundational economic model? What are we trying to do with our economy? Is it just to grow, or is it to take care of people in a particular way? Then the questions on geopolitics follow from that. Otherwise, the fact that we live in this country that is propped up by the cash injections of these decaying empires for this very specific window in history, 50 years that we've enjoyed, and today we are sitting on this unbelievably fat stacks while we're able to super exploit populations from across Southeast Asia. It's not going to continue. There's no scenario in which that's the future. So I want to flag that for everybody, and maybe we can develop this. Yeah.
Because we are an impossible nation, all the more we require wisdom. And wisdom is actually narrowing the gap between complexity and the fact that we cannot make sense of the world. So in order that we understand the impossibility of a nation, we need wisdom. And wisdom comes from narrowing the gap between making sense of the world and the complexity. And it comes from leadership. Wise leadership. Leadership that's able to engage the population, educate the population. And engagement, education, all is the right brain function. All is the right brain function. It is not just a left brain. The left brain is GPD, doing, executing, doing well, surviving. Left brain is survival mode. The right is learn and grow, engage the population, make them realize all the issues that we're talking about now. That's all I have to say.
Let me take the PAP government's position, alright? I'll answer both of you. Number one, wisdom, rubbish. Okay? Lack of resources, no problem. As long as you make a lot of money, you can buy anything, you can buy the whole world. Okay? Education, only to create the fellows who know how to push the paper. Right way. Push the paper and write the specifications for the building, right? And design the drawing or whatever, right? And then with the money, you can buy the construction materials, you can buy the brains which you don't have, right? So so that's the issue, right? So the impossible nation becomes possible. It's possible because we have become very rich. But we do not want anybody to disrupt that.
Be careful, Prof. Be careful paying a too high a price. Last year, 476 Singaporeans killed themselves. Higher than 20 years.
It is
and the largest group is between 20 and 29.
It is regrettable, but we can afford to lose them.
That is the left brain thinking. Usefulness.
I'm giving you the
PAP, left brain. Left brain. The left brain think like that. They are digits, they are useless.
Yeah.
It's all about utility. The right brain say, big picture, hang on a minute, they are Singaporeans, you know.
And what's wrong with that? So long as you have the money and you can bring in the brain power that you do not have, so what?
So what? It's this left brain thinking. I have money, I bring in manpower. Where is the pride in being a Singaporean? Where is the sense of belonging? Where is the patriotism? I am a Singaporean. Singaporean come first, not the foreigner. Foreigner can serve the nation, but cannot beat me. I'm a Singaporean.
We will pretend. We will pretend that the Singapore identity is very strong, right? Just listen to our national anthem, right?
Yeah.
The national anthem is about nationalism, about pride, and so on.
Left brain again.
As long as you know how to sing it, that's enough.
Left brain again. You sing and it's okay. Utility again. We need more right brain, open mind, engaging mind.
Okay. Then let me pose the question to the audience as well. What is the use of the right brain if we cannot make money? Because we have no resources, we have no whatever.
Very good.
Okay.
In the end, it's the cooperation between the right and left brain. You need both. You need scholars to solve problems. You need musicians, artists to create that culture.
Okay, Lee Kuan Yew has an answer to all of that. It's very simple. We just don't have the numbers of the population size is too small to be able to develop a huge creative community. Like China, for example. China every year produces 2 million engineers.
Not true. Norway 5 million people, 13 Nobel Prize winners. Not true. Norway 5 million people, 13 Nobel Prize winners. Norway.
But Norway has oil well. Okay.
So do we.
Okay. Yes.
Here's a question from audience. Hold on.
Now it's getting hot.
Hi there, thanks so much. I just wanted to ask about Singapore specifically. And when we think about imperialism, I think it's also important to think about Singapore as a financial hub, as a place where capital flows through. I know, Kumar, you and I have spoken about this and how I think identifying Singapore as a financial hub and using that maybe to generate strategies for resistance could be useful. Thinking about our banks and targeting banks, how they fund specific, for example, coal power plants within the region. So I was just interested to hear thoughts from the audience on Singapore's role as a financial hub and how...
Let me frame your question in a slightly different way. How can we use our capital resources, both our own capital resources and the incoming capital resources? How can we use these capital resources to ecologically develop the whole of Southeast Asia? How do we do that?
I can respond to both. So it's reminded me of a conversation I was just having with Tee Seng before the event started, and I was trying to make a point that actually Singapore's role in the global capitalist economic system has not changed very much from when Raffles set sail on this sunny island. The form of it, however, has changed, right? In the sense that the kind of capital that passes through here and is sort of transferred to various parts of the world, it's very different. Now it's financial capital. That's why we're a financial hub. We're one of the biggest hubs in the world. And I think that the discussion so far has been sort of framing Singapore in the passive sense. That Singapore, how is Singapore going to be affected in this conflicting world? But we don't yet think of Singapore as a perpetrator. And I think Feroz sort of touched on it in a very significant way, right? In so many ways, we are actually perpetrators, right? And if we look at the Myanmar example, I think all their assets of the junta are mostly in Singaporean banks. Right, and we actually have the power to freeze their assets, but we don't, right? Instead, we play the whole like, our hands are tied, and I think Vivian Balakrishnan said is that our role is overstated, right? But he's not really responded to civil society when civil society said that, okay, but the fact is that Singapore is the largest investor, right? When I say Singapore, I don't mean the ordinary person here. We're not investing in Myanmar, most of us, I think. But, it's the big corporations, your elite. So there's another thing also I want to unpack a little bit. When we talk about Singapore, who are we talking about, right? If you want to take Pritam's intervention in Parliament recently, there are 2 Singapores, right? But if we want to take it even further, is it the capitalists in Singapore? Is it the working class in Singapore? Is it the people in between? Is it the migrant workers in Singapore? Who are we talking about when we talk about Singapore? And I think when we dissect that a little bit, we get much more sophisticated and accurate answers.
So who do you think should be the Singapore?
I mean, I think that the vast majority of people here should be Singapore, and that is generally your working class. Well, whether or not you're working in a bank or whether or not you are a cleaner, you are part of you are a worker, essentially. And that's why I think we should be, when we talk about Singapore, we should be looking at, broadly speaking, the electorate. Right? And your electorate, most of them are workers.
So there are 2 issues here which arise from the statement made there, right? One is the local issue, right, which is about the well-being of the average Singaporean, right? And the other is what kind of new leadership with the kind of gumption, the kind of imagination, the kind of knowledge, the kind of right brain, visionary capability that will use the capital that is in Singapore to regenerate the whole of Southeast Asia, starting with Malaysia, for example, right? Malaysia is in a very in a situation which could create a problem for Singapore, right? If the radical Islamists and radical racism, right, gets out of hand, we are going to suffer the consequences. So what do we do? Let me be very specific. What can Singapore do to help Malaysia develop?
Can I respond to that question and some of your statement earlier on? I think the hub thing, I grew up hearing this word for a long time. We are hub of everything. We are mother of all hubs. One day we are media hub, the other day we are what hub, the transport hub, every day. So we are really the mother of all hubs.
Do we have a choice?
Yeah. But I would rather pose another question to respond to that. Is what going forward? I'm not talking about going backward. Get backward, we are already existing already, right? We are so rich already, right? Going forward, what is the relevance of Singapore to the region?
Right.
300 million people live south of us. 300 million live north of us.
Yes.
Right? I mean, even we are just talking about ASEAN alone, no? We are not talking about the world, right? We are just talking about the question of ASEAN. 300 million here, 300 million the other side. Right? And at the south, 300 million doesn't need Singapore. I mean, if they can find another place like Singapore, they don't need Singapore. Same thing in the north, they don't have. They also do not need. And in the north, there's a more interesting thing because now the north, 300 million is linked to an economic engine of 1.2 billion. Right?
China, right?
Yes, China. So, what is the relevance of Singapore? So this is a question I think is my response. I have no answer, but basically I'm just thinking in this way.
Yeah, just before you come to you, I just want to make one point. You make a very important distinction between North ASEAN and South ASEAN. Okay, North ASEAN is already in the hands of China. Okay, South ASEAN is where we have a possible role. Then I want to open it to the discussion, right? What could be that role? You want to say something?
Yeah. So, I'm from the fintech industry, and from the banking sector, and I definitely want to weigh in on this as well. So first of all, I want to just
comment that like all this talk of imperialism and geopolitics actually left quite a bitter taste in my mouth, and that's why you can see I've been drinking a sweet drink. Why it did, right, is because I think the discussion has been lacking a very fundamental understanding of economics. And I want to actually just tell the story of this argument I had with my girlfriend last night on economics. Because I'm more of a left-brain person from my background, and my girlfriend is more right-brain. So the fundamental argument that we have is this. She claims that there is not enough focus in society on the arts and encouraging the arts and art subjects and stuff like that. Okay, while my claim, and that's because we over-focus on the STEM subjects, which is the science, technology, engineering, and math. My claim is the opposite, which is there is not enough focus on STEM fields. And okay, so this goes to a very fundamental economic principle, okay? Because nobody in their right mind comes out after birth, goes on thinking, how am I going to maintain society's infrastructure? How am I going to audit the company's financial records? How am I going to do all these little bits of maintenance work in the society that requires math skills, engineering skills, technological know-how myself, right? I don't go to work each day smiling and saying, how do I face my next impending deadline that is coming for my next project, which the client has made a huge mess for me and I don't know how the hell I'm even going to solve it. And
so what's your point?
So the point is that there is actually not enough focus on STEM because we need encouragement for people to go into these fields, for people to learn things that they wouldn't be exposed to. While on the other hand, right, arts is something that people like naturally. Okay, you pay $25 a month for cable TV, right? And then you see some of my parents or my mom, right? She'll just spend the whole day watching TV. It's something that comes naturally to people already. Now, okay, there's of course the distinction that artists like to make, like there's good art and bad art.
I think that this dichotomy between art and science is a dichotomy that is falsely frozen.
Yes, definitely.
I want to take it up, okay?
Yes. And I will tell you how I resolved the argument.
All right.
I sang to my girlfriend a song which makes her change her mind 180 degrees and came to my position.
It's a great
May I please, moderator, address what has come up?
Yes.
May I please, moderator, address what has come up?
Yes.
I think it is wonderful that you can sing to your girlfriend, it's great, but I also think that your comprehension of what is STEM and arts needs an education in itself. Secondly, I would like to say if one had listened to what Tee Seng had said earlier, I'm a former teacher, and I think you said that you are a former teacher too. Am I right? Somebody else is a
You're a former student activist.
Okay. I feel that one of the points that he brought out was that our education system needs to be contextualized, something to that effect. And I would just like to take that further from what you have said. FinTech, I'm happy you're working in a FinTech. I'm happy that you're concerned about outcomes on a daily ritual. All that is good. But I also hope and wish and pray that our education system will give us greater depth, greater breadth, and greater choices. If the argument at this stage in our adult working life is that we need more STEM, we don't have enough arts. I say that it is quite a good, it is exemplary of what is lacking in our education system. I'll tell you why. We are already on sustainability in the whole world. And sustainability means we as human beings have eroded so many systems, nature, etc., etc. We got to make changes now to capture our own future. Do you hear this as a strong discussion in the media, in the curriculum from our NUS students? Yet, we have many groups of young people working so hard on climate change. And I think, what is that? Is that STEM? Is that arts? What is it? It is good education that they have picked up on their own, and maybe some of it because we are pumping a lot of money into climate change revisionary programs. So what I'm saying is, it would be very simplistic in our view if we are going to keep dividing and talking like this. Your second point about values. When we go to school, we don't come out thinking, I'm going to change society. But we are brought up by parents, by teachers, by an ethos that hopefully combines what school and parents tell us, maybe even religion, to know what is not right, what is wrong. And from there, at a very early age, we make changes. I'm not happy you are bullying my friend. That is change. It doesn't mean I go and change the whole big thing out there. So I think we got to look at it step by step. I'm sorry if I'm coming across quite strongly, but I found the argument that you put forward a bit too reductive.
No, I think the art and science thing is an unfortunate dichotomy, right? Because actually a creative person has both. Okay. Now I just want to take up what you are challenging us to think about, no? Right? I had a meeting, a very important meeting with one of the managing directors of Temasek. Okay? The question which I asked Temasek is this: is it possible for me to raise $1 trillion to finance the eco-regionalization of the Malaysia and Indonesia? And the reply that was given to me is that $1 trillion is not a problem at all. With Singapore's AAA financial status, we can raise more than $1 trillion. The question that was thrown back to me is that, who is going to manage that money? Do you have the kind of creative management people who know how to deal at the cultural and scientific level with the regional people? How are you going to convince the investors, the different client markets, the stakeholders, right? If you are just a mathematician or if you are just an artist. You have to be both. You have to be a creative person that has got the full capacity of his entire brain, right? Brain, right? Okay?
I agree, definitely agree. I just want to say that I take issue with the point that you say that my thinking is very simplistic or too simplistic.
No, I think that the reductionist, the issue of art and science.
I didn't say your thinking is simplistic. I said dividing it in that manner, STEM or arts, is simplistic. So I'm not...
Okay, because I just want to clarify my position, right? I definitely agree that...
The moderator, there are more hands going on.
I think we understand your point, but we are not saying that you are wrong. We are just saying that that dichotomy needs to be
I volunteer. I'll be very happy to chat with you after the event. You can tell me how it went down with the girlfriend, what the vibes were. I'm there for you. Let's talk about economics, my friend. Let's sing me the song, bro. Let's go.
I think there's nothing to learn from him about how to deal with your girlfriend.
That's all. I could use that advice, my friend. Thank you.
Let's go. Yeah. Okay, there's somebody else, yeah.
I want to say something. This is not my favorite phrase. Charing George says that we are air-conditioned nation. No, we are MCQ nation. Everything is multiple choice. He thinks that option 1, 2, 3, or all the above. And you say that we need wisdom. No, education system makes us, we are MCQ. You know, you ask someone to write what is that? TOK, a theory of knowledge paper, they all struggle. Yeah. So our education system doesn't encourage this, right? Most of the people I know now don't read. Okay? They go TikTok, they go YouTube and get information.
And you think that's wisdom, you know? And a lot of these things is just, to me, and he thinks, I think you think that art is not that great. No, wait. Don't argue me everything. I see you arguing everything, okay? Taylor Swift make more money than a lot of corporations down here. Apple was the biggest, was bigger than, what's that, Volvo and all that. So all this thing about dismissing art just like that, during the COVID, who was listening to music, right? FinTech is great, and I think FinTech is something that now encourages us to do something other than, I don't know what Singaporeans and financial capitalism. I always give this example of Singaporeans, right? Singapore. I did this example like 40 years ago, 4 Singaporeans sat in a restaurant and created this thing called lo hei, became the big hit in the region, right? In Taiwan, 4 guys sat in a restaurant and they created PSNC. Can you see the difference down here?
Yeah,
so maybe
so
at that
I
time,
think the point is this,
at that time maybe STEM didn't have a critical mass, right? So we didn't do that. But the Singaporean government at that time decided that we're going to use multinationals to do all this. Of course, Taiwan has more people studying, doing science. So in the end, I think the challenge here is how do we get out of this MCQ nation mentality? Is it? We choose three. It's like choosing 3 presidential candidates. This A, B, or C, and all that.
I think the point you're making is that we need to have an education system and a life and a living environment in which the creativity of people can come out, right? So Singapore can become an invention center for young people to create new products which can be manufactured in other places. We can't manufacture it here because it's too expensive.
And the other thing, yesterday I was looking at Facebook at something I wrote some time ago. There were 8 scholars from SOTA, and one of them went to literature, one went dance. The other guys went to aeronautics, physics, and all that. They came from a school of arts. So why do we think that just because they studied arts, they are not going to be in STEM? I think that's very, very, simplistic of you to think about that. No. I'm just saying that we shouldn't keep ourselves to these options that SOTA or STEM, because a STEM guy may become a musician.
I think the point is already made. So there's a lady there, right?
A lot of people want to talk to them.
Hello. Okay. Iris. Just want to respond because I'm actually I'm a musician. I was an arts educator when I was before the COVID times.
And you are anti-COVID, right? Anti-COVID vaccine.
Yes. Okay. So the thing is that I think actually we have a lack of arts in society because actually arts is really about it's not just simplistic like drawing and all these things. It's really about meaning and purpose. And I think today we have a lack of that, a severe lack of that, and people are not being taught to engage in intelligent discussions. We're not really taught to think critically, and these are all, I would say, you have to be trained in the arts to know that. And arts really is really about also respecting different views and being able to see things from different perspectives, which I think, from the topic today, dealing with a conflicted world, if we do not know where are people coming from, what is driving them, and how they look at the world, and the meaning and purpose behind what they're talking about, then we're going to have a lot of conflict, So I actually, and actually, what's the point of building a building if we do not know what's the reason behind it, okay, so I actually think that society needs to be driven. I would say arts give us identity, and I feel that there's a really huge erosion of our national identity versus this global identity, and we are, as Singapore, it's really in danger of being eroded by all these globalist agendas, globalist identities. But what is our identity as a country, and why do we keep losing our heritage of buildings and all the things that make this place our home? So this is my point. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry. It's not a political statement like Iris here, or an anti-globalist statement, but rather a statement, a question for the forum, which is, how do you see our Singapore identity evolving or changing as we face all these pressures? I mean, our media is now under the influence of everything from any form of Chinese media influence. That is the Chinese in Singapore, the Indians in Singapore are under the influence of Indian and what happens in India. How can our Singaporean identity evolve? The Malays are also influenced by what happens in Malaysia. How does the Singaporean identity evolve and stay cohesive in the form of all these pressures from outside? That's one. Two, how do we stay united when some of the speakers are talking about a worker-capitalist divide? She's talking about a globalist and elitist and the common populist divide. I mean, half of me thinks that the PAP is the problem, because should we have an identity as Singaporeans separate from the PAP? That means, is Singapore more than LKY? Is Singapore more than the PAP? Can Singapore be more than the PAP? And can we be more than the divisions that are inherent but can be
I think the Singapore identity is pretty well developed, right? Every time a Chinese Singaporean goes to China, he knows straight away that he's not a Chinese. Or an Indian in Singapore going to India, right? He knows he's not an Indian, right? Or a Malay in Singapore going to Malaysia, he knows that he's not same as the Malay. So I think there is a Singapore identity, right? So I think we could build on that. Okay, that's another.
Prof, can I have a question? I'm actually building on Marcus, what he said. I agree totally with what he said, because my sense of being a Singaporean is that Singaporeans are being pulled in all directions. I mean, we got the people talking. Yeah, what is it? Because I was born in 1966. I mean, my name has Kok Wo Liang. In Chinese, it means the pillar of the country. So, sorry, yeah. So my friends, all my people my age, all had the word Guo in their names, right? I think those people who nod their head, they know what I'm talking about. We were very patriotic because it was nation building back then, and all of the Singaporeans were going in the same direction because we had to in order to survive. But now it's totally different because we are in a way stable already, but the global environment has changed so much. It's so fragmented, it's so institutionalized, it's so nationalistic, and as a Singaporean, I'm torn. Do I look at the global picture or do we focus on ourselves? So that is my question to the panel.
Of course, we cannot be, we are both, right? We cannot just be local, we have also got to think globally. So this is, I think it's an obvious thing, right? Now there's a question that this person is desperately trying to ask.
Are you Martin? Martin C.
Hi, I'm Martin. Martin, a writer filmmaker.
Welcome, Martin.
Yeah, I just like to find out, try to hone my craft and learn something today. I think I'm quite young here. I just want to learn from the panel and can offer me suggestions. How do you think a young person like, or younger person like me could actually do something to sort of, what steps can I take rather than just, I think we really identified the various issues which are problematic, but what can we do to, or person of my generation can do to sort of right the wrongs or sort of do something about it?
Okay, so this is a question for you, Ang Yong Guan.
Can I add something, stretch the discussion a bit and so on? I think there is a lot of rethinking that we have, thinking that we have to do and rethinking that to do. So just now someone mentioned about Singapore being the financial hub. So as I said, I grew up with a hub thing, right? So I can tell you that hub don't really work. Just as the Chinese will tell you that war doesn't work. Right? Hub, I'm an IT guy, so...
No, are you answering this question?
Yeah, no, I'm not answering the question, I'm just exploring the...
No, can we then put that aside for time? Yeah, because his question as a young person, a creative young person in Singapore, how the hell is he going to survive in Singapore?
It's actually activating the right brain and make the right brain cooperate with the left brain.
It's already right brain.
Okay. So how do you activate the right brain? Remember, the right brain influences your left hand. So how do you activate the right brain? Mentalization. Mentalization is a skill that a young person can learn. And mentalization is basically theory of mind. Mind, others' mind. It means learning and growing, mind, others' mind. When you are engaged with someone, put yourself in his mind. What is this person thinking of me? Thinking of the topic we are discussing, and how I can learn and grow interacting with this person. So that is a skill that is worth exploring. It's called mentalization. Google it. Plenty of videos on mentalization. It is different from mindfulness. Mindfulness is the left brain skill. Mindfulness is being mindful of what you are thinking about, what is in your mind. That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is doing, human doing, mindful of what you are doing. And your right hand is governed by your left brain. You do with the right hand. The right brain influences your left hand. So your left hand is about mentalization. And secondly, your right brain is about hobbies, activities, and spiritual pursuits. Other than religion, spiritual pursuits, all in your right brain. So your left brain makes you do things in a confident way. But your right brain makes you take part in appreciating life, the beauty of life, nature, God, religion, whatever that is spiritually uplifting. That is the right brain. So take care of both. And when the left and right are taken care of, you will develop what I would call a whole brain person. And when you are a whole brain person, you not only do with your right hand, you learn and grow with your left hand. So there are basic steps to do. Don't go and devote yourself to doing, sacrificing learning and growing. Okay?
Somebody else wants to respond to you.
May I just respond also to the gentleman in grey? I think one way which we can move forward is we need to deepen and widen the mode of engagements. Right? Our government has to change the way they engage us, because you can see from today, we are all different. We all look at different things. We all have different interests. We all feel that whatever we feel, what we believe in is important. So traditional formats, like even today's forum, one person is speaking, everyone is listening, doesn't cut it anymore. Everyone uses Zoom, right? Has used Zoom before. The breakout rooms, where we all break out into sessions and focus on what you deem as important. And I think that's where we need to go. We need to have multiple parallel conversations. And more importantly, we also need to have conversations that are not based on opinion, but they must be deep, based on deep thinking, based on facts, based on data sets, rather than just what I feel. But again, we also still need another outlet for feelings, because if you don't address the emotional aspect of things, it doesn't work out. So as much as Singapore is a financial hub, we keep thinking ourselves as if you are rich, everything is solved. But again, we may be resolved in our cocoon of a country, again in the setting of Southeast Asia. We forget that Southeast Asia, majority of the people, I think still majority of the people are unbanked. As much as we have extensive financial resources, Norway can bring the $1.6 trillion fund to Singapore, but how does it benefit our region? Again, we need to expose ourselves to the wider view of things, and perhaps arts and culture need not be just Singapore focused. Perhaps we need to look out there, look beyond.
Prof, I just have one word to add, and that word is engagement. In the book, Why Nations Fail when they stop becoming inclusive. Nations fail when they become exclusive. Them versus us. So we are heading in that pathway. We feel helpless and hopeless, and we always think whatever we say doesn't matter. So this thing about engagement by Aldrin, this thing about diversity of views is damn important.
Yeah.
An inclusive nation will thrive. Thank you.
So Prof Tay, just one quick thing here, and I think this addresses both questions also about like the what can I do question. And I think whenever I hear people say what can I do, I say 23rd September 3 p.m. come to Hong Lim Park, because there's going to be thousands of Singaporeans saying, hey, we need a new project, man. Like, it's called the Singapore Climate Rally. Thousands of people, young people, old people, everybody is going to be there, and it's a moment to say, okay, like, I don't think I can change anything alone, which is correct. Like, you cannot do anything alone. That's why we're here. I think there's like a special power to being in a place with a lot of other people's bodies around you. You're listening. You're spreading COVID together. I think there's a very real like phenomenon that happens when we are able to be in presence, and that's where maybe the new Singapore identity will be found, right? That's where maybe the new notion of like, what is this national project? Is it still going to be this kind of growth-driven import everything, or are we trying to do something new? Are we trying to recreate the terms of the nation on some level? So I don't know, 23rd September,
It's fantastic,
Sorry.
Maybe you should bring your girlfriend, maybe you should bring your boyfriend.
I don't mind. Is that okay if you don't mind? I don't mind. Yeah, okay. You are asking what to do. This is a young man beside me. I think he's involved in so many projects. Before we met, I just asked him, how are you surviving? His answer back to me was that, if you don't mind, that I sleep 7 hours a day now, which is good, because he was working so hard. I don't think 7 hours a day was real. It was less than that. Why is it that the struggle is tough? The struggle is tough because there are too few of us. So if you really need to know what more to do, there are many young persons not forming societies and all. They are forming interest groups. They are doing exactly what Alvin, sorry, my apologies. Alvin said that. Aldrin. Sorry, my apologies. So workshops are the way to go. You get different views, you harness it, and people feel, I have contributed. So I think it's true, and the modus operandi of how we talk, etc. will be different, and it will cut across. The important thing is it cuts across everyone's different interests, which is what the guy in the grey shirt or green shirt asked, and I want to just go to that point. It is good to have chaos. I think it's lovely because it forces us to think. All of us thinking the same.
The government hates chaos.
I know, yeah, but it is good. It is part of a democratic approach because it forces us to think. But here's something that I would like to throw back to this whole group of us in this room. We talk about an identity, but have you noticed, even Prof says Chinese Singaporean, why not Singaporean Chinese? Why not Singaporean Indian? Singaporean Malay? Why is the Chinese coming first?
I'm too old.
Fine. But I'm saying we got to deconstruct that. If I believe I'm a Chinese, no, not about you, I am just talking generally now. If I see it as Chinese Singaporean, we got to deconstruct that. What does unity mean? What does Singapore identity mean, etc.? Contrast that to our neighbor Bumiputra country, Malaysia. I worked there for 2.5 years. The Malaysians are so proud. Malaysian Chinese, Malaysian Indian, I'm Bumiputra. That happens too. But Malaysia comes first. Isn't that interesting? Just for us to think about.
Okay, thank you. I think that we have not fully addressed your dilemma, okay? But let me just say that we will have to continue this discussion, right? But there is a spectrum between the left brain and the right brain orientation. Some people are very much right brain oriented, but a little bit left brain oriented also. I think what we can take away from this discussion is that we need to be able to widen the spectrum so that a right brain person needs to develop a little bit more left brain, a left brain person needs to develop a bit more right brain, right? Because this can only happen in a society in which there's a lot of liberal discussion, right? Where people can speak freely and honestly about their feelings and their thoughts. Because if we are afraid to express ourselves, right, because of whatever consequences we fear, then we are actually limiting ourselves. So I think that's something that we can take away. Yes, there's a question there.
I'm sorry, because you brought up a very interesting question that just hit my mind. You talked about the left brain and right brain. My question is more about left wing and right wing, because I suppose there's a predominance of left wing here with some right wing. But my question is actually this: how do you agree to disagree, and how do you agree to disagree in a Singaporean context? Because I'm pro-death penalty, I know he's anti-death penalty. I'm pro-vaccine, I know she's anti-death, she's definitely anti-vaccine. But how do you sit down and agree to disagree when every other force in the world is trying to divide us as Singaporeans and trying to find wedge issues to divide? Culture, gay, anti-gay, vaccine, anti-vaccine, left wing, right wing. How do you do that when there are forces that will exploit these divisions through pork farms, through things?
Yeah, but the simple answer is you're right that there are big forces acting on us. But we should support people like her, right? And not that she stands on her principles by herself. So I think this is where, as a society, we should support, people with who have convictions and who believe strongly in what they believe.
But to what extent do you support her right to disagree and to...
I support her right to disagree.
Yes, but then if she happens to be thrown in jail for her right to disagree,
then we must protest.
Then we agree
Then we must protest. We must not keep quiet.
Janice.
I want to strongly disagree with that. What we need to do is we need to gather together, have a frank, open, honest discussion and come to a consensus.
I don't believe in consensus. I believe in heightening the contradictions until there's nowhere to go and things must just boil, we just boil all the time.
I believe that society thrives on diversity, and that's why we should not have any kind of consensus, because consensus leads to conformity, conformity, which is the very, antithesis of what healthy society should be. It's a representation of people with different beliefs, different religions, different views, and we should always respect that. Thank you.
That's why it bothers me when Tharman, in his speech, said that one of the most important things that he wants is stability. Stability simply means, right, only one point of view. That's stability. No way.
Prof, can I just make a quick point? I think the problem here is that we have been so programmed by the PAP to see things in black and white in bipolar, there are no shades of grey in between. Because I admit, I've been brainwashed, but I'm beginning to see the light through people like Prof Tay, Dr. Ang, Breamar, and even Marcus.
Thank you very much. This is the purpose of Friday Conversations. We are a grey mess, okay?
Can I add? Yeah, I actually really believe in the right to free speech. Like I do think that so for example, like I identify more on the left, right? And I think there is sometimes a danger when the left there's sometimes a danger when we focus on harp on speech, right? And say that, okay, you can't say this, you can't say that. The reason why, right, of course, I don't think people should spout hateful things and all that, but the thing is, if you, for example, if you ask the tech companies and all that you empower them with censorship powers, it's going to be used against the left, right? It's going to be used against people who don't have power. I think for people on the left, like myself, we need to reckon with that. The left is not in power by any means. By a lot of means, the right wing is in power, right? And so when you empower whatever institution that is in power to have the power to censor, like POFMA and all this kind of rubbish, it stifles discourse. I think we should debate things that we feel uncomfortable with, and there are creative ways to moderate the discourse, right? There are creative ways to ensure that people feel safe to discuss some things. But I think it's important that we hash this out. And that very right to free speech is what allows unpopular ideas that are actually morally right, maybe it ends up benefiting a lot of people. That's how those ideas become popular, right? Otherwise, we have to be happy with whatever is Tharman says is stable, right? And I don't think that's the society I would want to live in.
I think just one thing I want to add to that is Singapore is not a united country. This country is already divided. I think the notion that
every country is divided.
Every country is divided, and the idea that just by talking about the fact that migrant workers are in lorries, and maybe if we can transport Singaporean children in buses, Singaporean adults in buses, Singaporean everybody in buses, maybe we can transport a migrant worker. That's not me trying to sow disunity. That's me pointing out that we already have a contradiction in our society, and we can choose to be like, actually this makes me uncomfortable and I really would like the center to hold, and I'm going to stay in the center, and I'm going to make sure that by staying in the center I'm taking in opinions from both sides, but I actually don't end up solving the contradiction, which is that these people are in lorries, man. Like there's a clarity, and there's a way that finding the actual fact underneath our buildings are built by people with no access to citizenship, who are like brought in on lorries to work, and who suffer like significantly higher rates of like industrial accidents and injuries, upon which they don't have reliable healthcare. Like, is there something for me to go to MOM and be like, actually I really unify with the employers of these workers here because I understand that they are worried about their bottom line? Or do I have the human impulse that, there's like clearly unjustifiable suffering, and if a few industries need to take a haircut to make sure people don't have to be in a lorry, maybe they should do that. I think when people in power say, this is disunifying, I'm worried about the unity of our nation. The only thing I can say is, this is not a united nation. Nation, you are sitting on the side of imperialism. It works for you. Of course I'm going to say that. I don't agree. I want to topple this whole thing, and so I'm going to try and get them out of the lorries, like this man here is doing.
I just want to say it will not be consensus all the time. Yeah, it cannot be, because your belief and your value system will drive it to a new zone of discomfort, because you will have to pick up something that makes you feel, oh dear, what's going to happen to me? This is new territory, I don't know enough, etc., etc. And I just want to, if I just can have 2 minutes or 1 minute, Greenpeace as an NGO was at one time almost hated by most countries because of what it was raising. And they did a big, I was mesmerized at that time, they did out at sea in a bay of somewhere near Thailand, they held their own protests on a boat, and the Thai police send them round. What do? Where's the boat? Is it in Thai waters? That was how severe their action that they wanted to take. Today, where is Greenpeace at the table with government leaders discussing climate change issues? From that period till now, it's a massive transition to acceptability. You are the expert, we didn't listen, now we are in trouble, can you please help us? So positioning where you stand, and this is the second point I want to make. In Singapore, we hardly talk about human rights. In our education system, I don't think any teacher really talks about human rights unless she or he does it quietly. And even in curricula, it doesn't happen. When I was leading a human rights group, I went to find out from the law faculty whether there was a module on human rights and the law. There wasn't. But because the question was put to them, today there are some topics of human rights and the law. I think that was the irony for me, that I found out that we are talking at ASEAN level about human rights, but in our own law faculties at that time, not now, at that time, there wasn't a proper component on human rights and the law. And if I'm a lawyer, it is crucial for me to understand the value of the law, the interpretation of the law, etc. So today we have Subhash Nair, who has been sentenced to 3 years. 3 years, right? And there's an appeal. Let's watch the appeal process. Look at what the judge had said. How much of what the judge had said do you agree? The other problem is, of course, it's reported in the Straits Times, so a reporter will do their own take on what the judges say. So we have to go back to the online version to read what were the judges' comments. How valid are they in the light of freedom of expression in terms of what was the intended? I'm the intender. I wanted to take on this exercise of raising awareness. We have to make that scrutiny. We have to make that decision. It cannot be passed over to the state or the state mechanisms. You have said it, therefore I follow what you have said. That, I think, is what is crucially quite deficient in our school system, and these are all the spaces where we have to engage a lot more through workshops, through further discussion, etc., and hopefully come to a balance of the left brain and the right brain that I've heard a lot about today.
I think we are coming to, we have only 10 minutes left, and I just want to throw it to the house, everybody, including the panel, right? Whether this session has been useful, has it been useful at all? Show of hands, please. Those who think that the session has been good, please put up your hand.